The Wonderful Dharma Flower Sutra. Chapter 25. The Universal Gateway of the Bodhisattva Perceiver of the World's Sounds. At that time, the Bodhisattva, inexhaustible intent, immediately rose from his seat, bared his right shoulder, pressed his palms together, and facing the Buddha, spoke these words: World-honored one, this Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world's sounds, why is he called perceiver of the world's sounds? The Buddha said to Bodhisattva, inexhaustible intent, Good man, suppose there are immeasurable hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, millions of living beings who are undergoing various trials and suffering. If they hear of this Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world's sounds, and single-mindedly call his name, then at once he will perceive the sound of their voices, and they will all gain deliverance from their trials. If someone, holding fast to the name of Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world's sounds, should enter a great fire, the fire could not burn him. This would come about because of this Bodhisattva's authority and supernatural power. If one were washed away by a great flood and called upon his name, one would immediately find himself in a shallow place. Suppose there were 100, 1,000, 10,000, a million living beings who, seeking for gold, silver, lapis lazuli, seashell, agate, coral, amber, pearls, and other treasures, set out on the great sea. And suppose a fierce wind should blow their ship off course, and it drifted to the land of Rakshasa demons. If among those people there is even just one who calls the name of Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world's sounds, then all those people will be delivered from their troubles with the Rakshasas. This is why he is called perceiver of the world's sounds. If a person who faces imminent threat of attack should call the name of Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world's sounds, then the swords and staves wielded by his attackers would instantly shatter into so many pieces, and he would be delivered. Though enough yakshas and rakshasas to fill all the 1,000,000,000-fold world should try to come and torment a person, if they hear him calling the name of Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world's sounds, then these evil demons will not even be able to look at him with their evil eyes, much less do him harm. Suppose there is a person who, whether guilty or not guilty, has had his body imprisoned in fetters and chains, king and lock. If he calls the name of Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world's sounds, then all his bonds will be severed and broken, and at once he will gain deliverance. Suppose in a place filled with all the evil-hearted bandits of the 1,000,000,000-fold world, there is a merchant leader who is guiding a band of merchants, carrying valuable treasures over a steep and dangerous road, and that one man shouts out these words, Good men, do not be afraid. You must single-mindedly call on the name of Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world's sounds. This Bodhisattva can grant fearlessness to living beings. If you call his name, you will be delivered from these evil-hearted bandits. When the band of merchants hears this, they all together raise their voices, saying, Hail to the Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world's sounds. And because they call his name, they are at once able to gain deliverance. Inexhaustible intent, the authority and supernatural power of the Bodhisattva and Mahasattva, perceiver of the world's sounds, are as mighty as this. If there should be living beings, beset by numerous lusts and cravings, let them think with constant reverence of Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world's sounds, and then they can shed their desires. If they have great wrath and ire, let them think with constant reverence of Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world's sounds, and then they can shed their ire. If they have great ignorance and stupidity, let them think with constant reverence of Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world's sounds, and they can rid themselves of stupidity. Inexhaustible intent, the Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world's sounds, possesses great authority and supernatural powers, as I have described, and can confer many benefits. For this reason, living beings should constantly keep the thought of him in mind. If a woman wishes to give birth to a male child, she should offer obeisance and alms to Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world's sounds, and then she will bear a son blessed with merit, virtue, and wisdom. And if she wishes to bear a daughter, she will bear one with all the marks of comeliness, one who in the past planted the roots of virtue and is loved and respected by many persons. Inexhaustible intent. The Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world's sounds, has power to do all this. If there are living beings who pay respect and obeisance to Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world's sounds, their good fortune will not be fleeting or vain. Therefore, living beings should all accept and uphold the name of Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world's sounds. Inexhaustible intent. Suppose there is a person who accepts and upholds the names of as many bodhisattvas as there are sands in 62 million Ganges, and for as long as his present body lasts, he offers them alms in the form of food and drink, clothing, bedding, and medicines. What is your opinion? Would this good man or good woman gain many benefits, or would he not? Inexhaustible intent replied, They would be very many, world-honored one. The Buddha said, Suppose also that there is a person who accepts and upholds the name of Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world's sounds, and even just once offers him obeisance and alms. The good fortune gained by these two persons would be exactly equal and without difference. For 100, 1,000, 10,000, 1,000,000 kalpas, it would never be exhausted or run out. Inexhaustible intent. If one accepts and upholds the name of Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world's sounds, he will gain the benefit of merit and virtue that is as immeasurable and boundless as this. Bodhisattva, inexhaustible intent, said to the Buddha, World-honored one, Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world's sounds, how does he come and go in this Saha world? How does he preach the law for the sake of living beings? How does the power of expedient means apply in his case? The Buddha said to Bodhisattva, inexhaustible intent, Good man, if there are living beings in the land who need someone in the body of a Buddha in order to be saved, Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world's sounds, immediately manifests himself in a Buddha body and preaches the law for them. If they need someone in a Prateka Buddha's body in order to be saved, immediately he manifests a Prateka Buddha's body and preaches the law to them. If they need a voice hearer to be saved, immediately he becomes a voice hearer and preaches the law for them. If they need King Brahma to be saved, immediately he becomes King Brahma and preaches the law for them. If they need the Lord Chakra to be saved, immediately he becomes the Lord Chakra and preaches the law for them. If they need the heavenly being freedom to be saved, immediately he becomes the heavenly being freedom and preaches the law for them. If they need the heavenly being great freedom to be saved, immediately he becomes the heavenly being great freedom and preaches the law for them. If they need a great general of heaven to be saved, immediately he becomes a great general of heaven and preaches the law for them. If they need Vajrayana to be saved, immediately he becomes Vajrayana and preaches the law for them. If they need a petty king to be saved, immediately he becomes a petty king and preaches the law for them. If they need a rich man to be saved, immediately he becomes a rich man and preaches the law for them. If they need a householder to be saved, immediately he becomes a householder and preaches the law for them. If they need a chief minister to be saved, immediately he becomes a chief minister and preaches the law for them. If they need a Brahmin to be saved, immediately he becomes a Brahmin and preaches the law for them. If they need a monk, a nun, a layman, believer, or a laywoman, believer, to be saved, immediately he becomes a monk, a nun, a layman, believer, or a laywoman, believer, and preaches the law for them. If they need the wife of a rich man, of a householder, a chief minister, or a Brahmin to be saved, immediately he becomes those wives and preaches the law for them. If they need a young boy or a young girl to be saved, immediately he becomes a young boy or a young girl and preaches the law for them. If they need a heavenly being, a dragon, a yaksha, a gandharva, an asura, a garuda, a kinara, a maharaga, a human or a non-human being to be saved, immediately he becomes all of these and preaches the law for them. If they need a Vajra-bearing god to be saved, immediately he becomes a Vajra-bearing god and preaches the law for them. Inexhaustible intent. This Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world's sounds, has succeeded in acquiring benefits such as these, and taking on a variety of different forms, goes about among the lands, saving living beings. For this reason, you and the others should single-mindedly offer alms to Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world's sounds. This Bodhisattva and Mahasattva, perceiver of the world's sounds, can bestow fearlessness on those who are fearful, pressing or difficult circumstances. That is why in the Saha world everyone calls him bestower of fearlessness. Bodhisattva inexhaustible intent said to the Buddha, "World-honored one, now I must offer alms to Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world's sounds." Then he took from his neck a necklace adorned with numerous precious gems, worth 100 or 1,000 taels of gold, and presented it to the Bodhisattva, saying, "Sir, please accept this necklace of precious gems as a gift in the Dharma." At that time, Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world's sounds, was unwilling to accept the gift. Inexhaustible intent spoke once more to Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world's sounds, saying, "Sir, out of compassion for us, please accept this necklace." Then the Buddha said to Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world's sounds, "Out of compassion for this Bodhisattva, inexhaustible intent, and the 4 kinds of believers, the heavenly beings, dragons, yakshas, gandharvas, asuras, garudas, kinnaras, maharagas, human and non-human beings, you should accept this necklace." Thereupon Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world's sounds, having compassion for the 4 kinds of believers and the heavenly beings, dragons, human and non-human beings, and the others, accepted the necklace, and dividing it into 2 parts, presented one part to Shakyamuni Buddha, and presented the other to the tower of the Buddha many treasures. The Buddha said, "Inexhaustible intent, these are the kinds of freely exercised supernatural powers that Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world's sounds, displays in his comings and goings in the Saha world." At that time, Bodhisattva inexhaustible intent posed this question in verse form. "World-honored one, replete with wonderful features, I now ask you once again, for what reason that Buddha's son is named perceiver of the world's sounds?" The honored one, endowed with wonderful features, replied to inexhaustible intent in verse. Listen to the actions of the perceiver of sounds, how aptly he responds in various quarters. His vast oath is as deep as the ocean. Kalpas pass, but it remains unfathomable. He has attended many thousands and millions of Buddhas, setting forth his great pure vow. I will describe him and outline for you. Listen to his name, observe his body, bear him in mind, not passing the time vainly, for he can wipe out the pains of existence. Suppose someone should conceive a wish to harm you, should push you into a great pit of fire. Think on the power of that perceiver of sounds, and the pit of fire will change into a pond. If you should be cast adrift on the vast ocean, menaced by dragons, fish, and various demons, think on the power of that perceiver of sounds, and the billows and waves cannot drown you. Suppose you are on the peak of Mount Sumeru, and someone pushes you off. Think on the power of that perceiver of sounds, and you will hang in midair like the sun. Suppose you are pushed by evil men who wish to throw you down from a diamond mountain. Think on the power of the perceiver of sounds, and they cannot harm a hair of you. Suppose you are surrounded by evil-hearted bandits, each brandishing a knife to wound you. Think on the power of that perceiver of sounds, and at once all will be swayed by compassion. Suppose you encounter trouble with the king's law, face punishment, about to forfeit your life. Think on the power of that perceiver of sounds, and the executioner's sword will be broken to bits. Suppose you are imprisoned in Kangen lock, hands and feet bound by fetters and chains. Think on the power of that perceiver of sounds, and they will fall off, leaving you free. Suppose, with curses and various poisonous herbs, someone should try to injure you. Think on the power of that perceiver of sounds, and the injury will rebound upon the originator. Suppose you encounter evil rakshasas, poisonous dragons, and various demons. Think on the power of that perceiver of sounds, and then none of them will dare to harm you. If evil beasts should encircle you, their sharp fangs and claws inspiring terror, think on the power of that perceiver of sounds, and they will scamper away in boundless retreat. If lizards, snakes, vipers, scorpions threaten you with poison breath that sears like flame, think on the power of that perceiver of sounds, and hearing your voice, they will flee of themselves. If clouds should bring thunder and lightning strike, if hail pelts or drenching rain comes down, think on the power of that perceiver of sounds, and at that moment they will vanish away. If living beings encounter weariness or peril, immeasurable suffering pressing them down, the power of the perceiver of sound's wonderful wisdom can save them from the sufferings of the world. He is endowed with transcendental powers, widely practices the expedient means of wisdom. Throughout the lands and the 10 directions, there is no region where he does not manifest himself. In many different kinds of evil circumstances, in the realms of hell, hungry spirits, or beasts, the sufferings of birth, old age, sickness, and death, all these he bit by bit wipes out. He of the true gaze, the pure gaze, the gaze of great and encompassing wisdom, the gaze of pity, the gaze of compassion. Constantly we implore him, constantly look up in reverence. His pure light, free of blemish, as the sun of wisdom, dispelling all darkness. He can quell the wind and fire of misfortune, and everywhere bring light to the world. The precepts from his compassionate body shake us like thunder. The wonder of his pitying mind is like a great cloud. He sends down the sweet dew, the Dharma rain, to quench the flames of earthly desires. When lawsuits bring you before the officials, when terrified in the midst of an army, think on the power of that perceiver of sounds, and hatred in all its forms will be dispelled. Wonderful sound, perceiver of the world's sounds, Brahma's sound, the sea tide sound. They surpass those sounds of the world. Therefore you should constantly think on them. From thought to thought, never entertaining doubt. Perceiver of the world's sounds, pure sage, to those in suffering, in danger of death, he can offer aid and support. Endowed with all benefits, he views living beings with compassionate eyes. The sea of his accumulated blessings is immeasurable. Therefore you should bow your head to him. At that time, the Bodhisattva, earth holder, immediately rose from his seat, advanced, and said to the Buddha, World-honored one, if there are living beings who hear this chapter on Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world's sounds, on the freedom of his actions, his manifestation of a universal gateway, and his transcendental powers, it should be known that the benefits these persons gain are not few. When the Buddha preached this chapter on the universal gateway, a multitude of 84,000 persons in the assembly all conceived a determination to attain the unparalleled state of Anuttara Samyak Sam Bodhi.